wait, how's that possible? How can an arrow be moving and not be moving at the same time? Ugh. This is so confusing. I'm going to fail my world history test tomorrow.
What's going on, kid?
Just trying to figure out my history. It's really hard stuff. I'm having trouble picking out the key things.
Let me help you out.
What do you know about ancient Greece?
Well, not much, but I thought that those guys, Socrates and Plato, were involved.
Not bad, but there's more to Greek philosophy or formal thought. Before Socrates came, there are the sophists and the cynics. They were paid to argue.
So they were basically our lawyers.
Right. One of the famous examples is Zeno's paradox. This was what made me so confused earlier. So he says that if you throw an arrow through the air, it will land somewhere else. But then he said that if you take a still image of it, it isn't in motion. The number of shots won't matter.
Wow. That's so cool.
Then Socrates came along. He scared some people because he challenged things in the world with questions so that he would get an answer that would please him. He got his way through inquiries, but he was put to death for disagreeing with the law.
Ouch, man. That's harsh. Anything else?
Yeah. The other guy was Plato. Plato developed the idea that in our world, we are all chained to follow the rest. This was the allegory of the cave.
Okay.
It says that all these men are chained in a dark cave staring at shadows of objects not wanting to leave. One guy leaves the cave and is amazed at the light and everything outside. When he tells it to everyone else, they think he's crazy.
Hey, it's like now. Everyone just goes with the flow. Okay then. I'm the best Greek teacher you will ever see. Let me teach you about Greek philosophy. The paid lawyers started it all, but eventually, two others were called. Now, Socrates was no dancer. He would question and inquire until he got his answer. Now let's move on to Plato, Socrates' student. This man had other great achievements. The allegory of the cave was the most famous. In the dark cave, men would be brainless. In the dark cave, watching shadows go by. They learned what to believe, fed through the eye. There was a whole new world outside the cave actually. And this new world was reality.
Wow. I have to learn that. That was great.
Glad you like it. Okay, back to business. What's next?
I think I need help with memorizing all their wars and military tactics. So let's see. Oh yeah. Phalanx warfare.
Hey, I've heard of that. It's the thing where everyone is lined up and both armies go charging towards each other, right?
Yeah. It was the way of war all over Europe. The men would be in rows and they would each have a spear and a shield. One formation was the tortoise. The men would join shields, cover themselves, and move forward as...
Hey, I saw that in some movie called Troy. They did it in the movie, that tortoise thing.
Yeah. The Achilles tendon came from the hero Achilles. He was weak only in that spot.
Hey, I've heard about that. It's right here on my body. The Greeks were pretty smart. We could use some of them back home in Singapore. Sure would make life a bit more interesting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, that's enough information for this topic.
Okay. Here we go. Now let's talk about the military tactics. These weren't just some new magic. Phalanx warfare led the group. All of Europe got stuck in the loop. Soldiers lined up in rows, charged at each other with terrible blows. So that's all I have to say about the Greek tactics. Now I'm on a roll.
Okay, let's move on to another set of wars, the Persian Wars. When Unia wanted to break away from the Persian Empire, Athens was willing to help. Darius the Great was angered and sent his 25,000 soldiers to defeat the rebels in Marathon.
That doesn't seem fair. Athens had no hope.
But you see, the Athenians stood their ground and beat them. One famous legend states that a man, Thucydides ran 42 kilometers from Marathon to Athens to inform them that the Athenians had won.
Hey, is that where our marathon race is from?
Yup. Thucydides ran so fast that he died soon after the news of victory reached Athens.
The Persians won't give up, will they?
You're right. It says in my book that Darius' son Xerxes led another army to finish what his father started. The Greek city-states united for once, and when the Persian ships came, Themistocles, the leader of Greeks, tricked the Persians to come into the Strait of Salamis where the army was waiting. The Greek triremes.
What in the world are those?
They were swift ships coated in bronze at the water level designed to ram into other ships. In each of the 180 ships, 172 rowers powered the boats. Anyways, the Greek easily defeated the Persians. I'm done.
So let's see what I can work with here. The Persian War started in 490 BC. And many people died, you see. It started when Ione wanted to break away. Darius the Great thought this was not okay. When Persia came to set them straight, the Athenians were waiting at the gate. They stood at Marathon in their shoes, while Thucydides ran 42 kilometers to pass the news. It wasn't over yet. The war is between Persia and Greece. The two countries were not at peace. Xerxes shared his father's dream, wanting to defeat Greece's team. The Greek city-states, united for once, lured the Persians in to the Strait of Salamis with the Greek army waiting to win. And so now the story ends, when the Greek triremes defeated the Persians with one easy step. Okay kid, we have time for just one more topic before we reach.
So, I think we can do a bit about the golden age of Greece.
Sounds good.
Well, it was a time when the value in art, architecture, literature, and philosophy rose. People would pay for artwork. This was a new concept for most people. Artists would make sculptures with massive muscles and curly hair.
Hey, that's what our hot people look like. Dude, the Greeks were awesome.
The White House and the Lincoln Memorial have Greek columns. The stone columns were the most famous characteristics of their architecture. Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns were the three different types.
You're right. I remember seeing the columns in DC, like you said.
Exactly. The literature in the Golden Age consisted mostly of tragedy, comedy, and poems. The tragedies was when a man goes from the highest position to the lowest position. Their comedies consisted of the writers making fun of high leaders.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, they are like our JLA today. Love songs came out as well during this time. The philosophical part of it. Well, I already mentioned that at the beginning.
So, I think that's as much as we can fit in. Just one last one. The Golden Age of Greece was a magical age. Art, architecture, literature and philosophy came to the stage. Let's talk about art for a moment, bro. Artists started making perfect sculptures of people to show. The men would have muscles everywhere, while the women would have perfect hair. Now, they're amazing architecture. The stone columns were the main component. The three types were Doric, Corinthian, Ionic. This was new, the literature of the ancient Greeks, where tragedies, comedies, and poems became the piece. Tragedies were sad, comedies were funny, poems were romantic. So that's basically the stuff about Greek history. Now hopefully, you ace this test.
Thanks so much, dude. I think it will really help me on my test tomorrow.
No problem, kid. Anytime.